I had another week where I was just overwhelmed with God's presence. And I, I went back through a lot of my old previous lessons and things of that nature. And um, what God had when He started with me, and how, in spite of myself, He's brought me along and just showed me so many things. It just was overwhelming. So, our lesson this week, believe it or not, we actually finished chapter 7, and we should start chapter 8. But I have a bridge between the two, which will be today's lesson, which I think I handed these out last week. So, gold stars to whoever brought them back. No. Okay. Good thing I made more. So these are the, remember I was 3 pages, 1, 2, 3. We're going to take a look at, we'll start in, I think I start in the very first, oh yeah, okay. We'll wait till the handouts get handed out. So as a brief reminder, come on, paper. Yeah. So as a brief reminder, Daniel 7 talked about the 10 horns and the little horn, which is what I've tried to sort of leave up here. And we had some symbols. Empire is not a symbol, empire. We had beast is over here. We have sea, dragon. You're also going to find out that in Revelation, which we may get to read today, I don't know, he's referred to as the red dragon. Horns, times, all of these things we've sort of covered leading up through and including Daniel 7. And again, our time is 1 year, times is 2 years, a half times a half year. That gets you 3.5 years. We're also later, and I don't want to digress too much, I have too much to cover already. We'll also later discover there's a number value for that. And you can figure out what it is by multiplying 360 times 3, which is 1,080, and 180 gets you is at 1180. Whatever that comes out to, that number will show up somewhere. They don't. The prophet doesn't always use times and a half time. Sometimes they use the number value of that for a different. It represents a different period, but the same length of time. It's about time. All right, but I'm bummed. We're going to look closely at these this morning. So you don't have this one. I'm just going to read this. We're going to start with Revelation 12:14. The woman was given the 2 wings. The woman. You don't know who the woman is just yet. We haven't covered all that. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and a half time out of the serpent's reach. And the woman is referred to, when we get into some other lessons, Satan hates this woman and tries to stop her from giving birth. Do we know who that woman is? Pardon me? Mary. Well, it's beyond Mary. It's Israel. Christ comes through the nation of Israel, God's chosen people. They give birth, if you will, to Christ. And so this is representative of, again, the Antichrist going after the Jewish people, big time in the second half of the tribulation, and they flee. This says taking care of the time out of the serpent's reach. They don't, we'll get to it. She flees up to the mountains, and we talked about that before, which ends up, some people think that's Petra and the Red Rocks area down there. Crosses over into Jordan and heads south as the Antichrist's forces are trying to get at them. But what I wanted you to see here, the woman, 2 wings of a great eagle, fly to a place prepared for her in the wilderness where she'd be taken care of for times and a half time out of the serpent's reach. And that's what we were just talking about. Now, let's just have a look. We're going to walk through pages 1, 2, and 3 in the handout. Let me ask you a question before we read any of these. So, what does a horn represent?
Ruler.
Guess we're going to start writing the definitions up here. In fact, I remember specifically giving you all a sheet with all these definitions on them, but far be it from me to point that out. What is it? Regardless of that or irregardless? Take your pick. So a horn is power, okay? And so what you see are 10, if you want to say people or organizations of power. In the middle, we have a small horn who will rise up, and it says he knocks off 3 of these. There are no more. Now, he rises up, and again, we haven't studied the Antichrist thoroughly, but you're going to know him good by the time we get to it. He rises to power with a bow and no arrow, which says he does it sort of politically, not violently. So when these 3 are removed, we don't need the Board of Education. We don't need the, whatever. Please, politics, don't bother me, people. But it's that sort of thing. Three somethings that had influence and power are no longer needed in his empire. And so that leaves him with 7 horns plus the little guy, okay? Is Christ represented in the Bible as having a horn? Or horns? The plot thickens. Revelation 5:6. Then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had what? 7 horns. Look at that. And 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out unto all the earth. And when we actually study Revelation, we're going to look at those 7 spirits of God and a whole bunch of stuff in there. But I wanted you to see that a horn by itself isn't evil, it's power. Christ had 7 of them, or has 7 of them. Okay? It's simply a symbol of power. And we'll talk about the meaning of this when we get to Revelation. Then we get down to Daniel's 10 horns. And we look, this is how the Old Testament bridges into the New and how you can understand both now. So now we're reading Revelation 12:3 and 13:1. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. Now, I'll bet you all have read, maybe not, Revelation before, and it's like, what? But now, let's take our little list and what we've learned from Daniel so far and take another look. It says, then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon, and we know the dragon is Satan. In this case, it's called red. So now we have Satan has 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its head. Goodness. So we have 10 horns here. 7 of these, I don't even know how to draw one. I'm not even good at Burger King. Is that a crown? Or is it a seismograph? But here's your 7 crowns. 7 crowns, 10 horns, we did that. 7 crowns. The crowns represent authority. So it's one thing for you to be powerful. It's another to have authority. So you're anointed with the crown, if you will. And the horn, and plus we have heads. So these are people. You remember last week I said you can have a horn or an empire or whatever lasts a long, long time. The horn's the same way. You know, you put power in place, the Social Security Administration, the director of that comes and goes. While they're the director, they have a crown. They're the head, and so when they move on, somebody else does, and so on. So that's what this is trying to tell us. 7 heads, 10 horns a head. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea. Boy, what a picture. Can you imagine John when he saw, when he's seeing this vision? You have a dragon standing on, Atlantic Beach or whatever it's called out there, Atlantic City. So we have a dragon, who we know is Satan, stands there. And what's it say? Stands on the shore of the sea.
Masses of people in a state of great unrest, chaotic.
Wonderful. Look how well informed he is. But see, you can, now that you understand what sea means, and we get that definition, by the way, out of Daniel, and you'll also get it, I believe, later in Revelation. God actually interprets it again. Think of anything that whether it's the folks in Gaza or Arab Spring or Watts riots, anything where people are no direction, they're upset, they're in turmoil, they need a leader, they're just disorganized but angry, blah, blah, blah. That's the chaotic. So in that environment, Satan steps in and raises up a ruler for them. Now, the Antichrist, that's what's coming. So that's what he's telling you here. I saw this, and he stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of it. What does beast symbolize? Kingdom, empire, kingdom, yeah. And I saw an empire coming out of this sea, out of this turbulence. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, son of a gun. With 10 horns on its, it had 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. So this is an evil empire. I think I saw that in a movie once, didn't I? The choir in the back with the theme song. Yeah. So this is a perfect picture in Revelation of what Daniel told us in chapter 7. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and each had a blasphemous name. It's an evil empire. Let's look at the scarlet beast for a minute. And again, I'm just grabbing things out of Revelation to show you how these help us read something that we seemed imperceptible. And we're using definitions for these symbols taken directly from the Bible. And in most cases, God himself is telling Daniel the sea was, or the ocean is, or whatever the case is. So now we come to the scarlet beast. Revelation 17:3. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names, and had 7 heads and 10 horns. Son of a gun. There is a lot in here, and I don't want to get too deep into Revelation, but you need to know this. So I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names. Now, scarlet, we don't think much of that today. Back when John was writing this, was probably one of the most expensive garments that you could buy. That and that royal blue. There's a name for it, it's escaped me. But the deep blue and scarlet, because of the dyes. I think the blue was actually made from something from clams, oysters, seafood, something. I forgot what it is now, but very difficult to make, and then to get it into your clothing. And don't put any Clorox with it, or it's gone. But scarlet was very, very expensive. You were real royalty if you had some kind of scarlet garment. So this is telling us, pardon me? I think about the same. Yeah. Yeah. Lydia, the tattooed lady. No. This is why I don't teach choir. Yeah, she was a seller of purple. Yeah. In any case, this is representing, to start with, a very wealthy. This being is covered in wealth, and it says there was a woman on a scarlet beast. What did we decide beast was? An empire. So this is another empire covered in wealth. Covered with, and also, not just wealth, covered in blasphemous names, had 7 heads and 10 horns. And then, if we, I didn't print that. Okay. Yeah, so when we get to Revelation, that's the note I made there. 1 through 16 covers this woman. I'm going to cut to the chase for you. Let's go to Revelation 17:15, right underneath it. Then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits, she gets called a prostitute, all kinds of harlot and so on, sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. So this is the whole by the sea thing, and this creature, this scarlet woman, comes out of all of this. We'll go over to the next page. Oh, the beast out of the sea. So hang on a second. I don't want to leave you hanging. This is the false prophet. This guy's empire's religion. The fourth empire, which is what we've been discussing, was mortally wounded and then came back. What did we say the general opinion of the fourth empire is? Okay, rewind the tape. Let's try again. We said we had Babylonian, Greek, Persian, and Roman. Very good. Persian and Greek. Sorry, I got it wrong. The Roman Empire. This is a lot of people believe that when the Antichrist returns, he's going to bring back the Roman Empire, but not in the sense that we think. Anthony Quinn's not going to be one of the. They don't know who that is either. Never mind. What they mean by the Roman Empire, what were the key components of the Roman Empire at the very top? Caesar. They had a Caesar. What was unique about Caesar? Every country has a leader. What was unique about the Caesar in the Roman structure? Yeah, he was a head of both church and state, and was considered a god and was worshipped as much as the other gods. Blah, blah, blah. So what we see at the very top then is a sort of a mirror image of what you're going to have: the Antichrist and the false prophet. And I don't know if I have it in this or the next one, it doesn't matter. And the false prophet is going to turn the world towards the Antichrist. And, we said last week, he's going to, you've been looking for Jesus, I'm Jesus. You want to know who God is? I know who God is, and the God you think is not it. And he'll be talking to the Muslim community as much as the Christian community and the Jewish community. Now, this is God, and he'll be pointing over at Satan. And I can prove it because, and he'll start to try to do all these, it said signs and wonders and all of that stuff. And the holy, well-dressed, if you will, filthy rich false prophet and that church will fully support the Antichrist and cover the earth. You talk about the sign of the 666 thing. When Satan comes to power through the Antichrist, he is going to rule both the government and the religion, and with a rod of iron. It doesn't say rod of iron. He's just cruel, crude, and whatnot. And this beast that we're describing here on the well-dressed, comes well-dressed and with the blasphemous names on it. So what we started out last week a little bit. It's one thing for us to read, particularly in a Sunday school class, blasphemous names. Oh, horrible. What is that? What is it really? What's it going to look like? How can a church have blasphemous names about God plastered all over it and still be a church? because of the blasphemy is going to be, they're going to take Scripture and point it at Satan as being the truth of that Scripture. Those kinds of things. But it blows my mind. And so you're going to have a church now that's going to have whatever the Antichrist's name is, 666 or whatever, plastered all over it. Just like you go to Jordan, very nice country. The king is marvelous, but what do you see as you're driving all through Jordan? The king's picture on the side of every building that you see. The king's picture as you get on a bus or whatever it is. You're going to go into church, and instead of seeing, we don't know what Christ looks like. Anybody take a snapshot? But instead of seeing pictures of Christ, you're going to see pictures of this person replacing Jesus and those kinds of things. And follow us, and you'll get eternal life. That's blasphemy. That's the kind of thing they're going to be doing. It's going to be huge. All right, chapter 13. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea. Now, we talked about the dragon and the sea that he came up with. And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet of a bear and mouth of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and authority. So here's a picture of Satan giving to the Antichrist power and authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. And you can read this 100 different ways. One of the ways that sounds more reasonable is that this is a revival of the Roman Empire. Roman kingdom had died off in 467 or whatever it was, and it's back to. Or this is John Kennedy coming out of the grave, or Elvis didn't die and now he's ahead of the Antichrist. It just the theories and stuff is just that. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. So they're just, remember, he's coming out of the sea. The world's a mess. Political unrest everywhere. Wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, pestilence, blah, blah, blah. And this person rises up with his little organization there and says, I've got all the answers. Follow me. And the world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. And a beast, again, is an empire. So be a part of my empire. People worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. So now we're going to have the church worship Satan on top of everything else. And they also worship the beast and ask, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? And they're worshiping. We don't come to church to worship the United States of America or whatever, or to worship the current president or, whatever. We come to worship God. These people are coming to worship Satan, the Antichrist, and the kingdom that he set up on the earth, and just continue to praise him all the time. Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? The beast was given a mouth to utter, I love this. The beast was given, this is an empire, given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for, 42 months. How long is 42 months? Time and a half times. Or 1,800, whatever the math is. We'll do that one next week. But this is another way of showing you a period. And so, correct, for 3.5 years, he is going to have authority to do this. And no, we get to Revelation. I'll let you tell me what 3.5 year period this is. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. So you can see right away the message coming out of the Antichrist and his false prophet. They're going to blaspheme God. God's nothing. I'm better than God. I'm going to show you that. And to slander his name and his dwelling place, and those who live in heaven. It was given power. I wonder why they'd want to do that. Where did Satan and his fallen demons come from? They came from heaven. God threw them out. God was the one that said, if you follow him, you're not a part of mine anymore. You're, phew. So all these demons now have it in for God and heaven and keep that place, that attitude and so on. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people. Okay, and they're going to be the Jews or anybody really that professes Christ as a Messiah, and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. Now, this is that whole false church thing again. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. Whoever has ears, let him hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patience, endurance, and faithfulness on the part of God's people. And the saved during this last half of the tribulation period are going to have to endure beyond anything that the followers of Christ did right after Christ was crucified. It's going to be horrible, just horrible. And they're going to have to endure it. We'll come across, I'm getting ahead of myself as I always do, we'll get across verses in Revelation later. We have 144,000 witnesses get slain. As they arrive in heaven, and not all at the same time, there's a huge number of them up in heaven, pleading with God, how long are you going to let this continue? Can't you see what they're doing to our brothers and sisters down there? And it will continue to the end of the tribulation period. This group is in for, so this calls for patient endurance and faithfulness. Verse 11, then I saw a second beast, had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke like the dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. Oh, so this is our woman in scarlet right here, who's fatal, and I think doesn't show up till 17, but I put her in there early anyway. Is that right? Anyway, this is her, whose fatal wound had been healed, and it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image and honor the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. So this is what's coming. I think you've heard of this before. If not, he is going to go into the temple and put this image in the center of the temple, and it's going to speak top of everything else. And you will come and worship this, and you will get the mark of the beast, or, it also here it is right here. It says, who refused to worship the image will be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. And we are going to study this big time when we get back there. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. And we all know that stands for Ronald R. Reagan. Okay. Craziness. Just crazy. So did I skip a page? Oh, 3, that's it. The rest is, yeah. So, yeah. So what I wanted you to see before we jump into 8, now I got to flip back a page. I'll tell you, on the video, I look like a ding-dong going back and forth, back and forth. All right, so that's where we go next. All right. So from Daniel's 7th week, we got enough information out of that to identify the two beasts in Revelation and their message, all kinds of things. All these symbols right here, perhaps not mountain, but all the rest of these came out of Daniel. Daniel wouldn't have known. He knew what God told him. Then you fast forward about about 600 years, to John on the Isle of Patmos. And if you ever get a chance to go out that way and see, forgotten the name of it already. This age thing, I'm telling you, this drives me nuts. Ephesus. You'll remember that when Christ was on the cross, he looked down at John and Mary, and John promised that he would take care of Mary. The story is, we have no written proof, but the story is that at some point, John moved to Ephesus, and Mary moved to Ephesus, and there is a house just off the city limits, if you will, where they believe that's where Mary lived. John built it for her, whatnot. It could be, and now this is where you get into Bible fiction. It could be the reason that they went there was Paul spent a lot of time in Ephesus and started a church through a guy named Timothy. So Timothy and Paul were there. Paul spent 2 years plus there. And then Timothy had a church there. John and Mary, let's go over to Ephesus. So it's a fabulous place to visit. Well, when the Romans punished him by boiling him in oil and he didn't die, darn it, can you imagine? Boiled and didn't die, looked like a French fry, but he didn't die. They exiled him to the island of Patmos, which you can see right off the shoreline of Ephesus. It's not that far. And they did that so that he could look back and know that his friends and Mary and all that were here, but he couldn't get to them because of the island. That's where he was when he got Revelation, around 90 AD or so. It's a guess, they don't know for sure, but in almost 100 AD, he gets the vision we read in Revelation. We get the advantage of everything from Daniel all the way through till we get over to the book of Revelation. And you'll see how much easier it is for us to understand God's plan at that point. I was going to start with 8 when we start again.